Going live. All right, we are live. Hello, dear Starshines. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Christina here with Light Body Academy. Uh, hey, good. So nice to see you guys. Hey, Carol. Hey, Polly. Hi, Young Trick. How's it going, Susan? Great to see you guys. Welcome, welcome, welcome. For those of you who are new, my name is Christina and I'm an acceleration expert. And we are here to talk about those topics and issues that are significant for us starseeds, wayshowers, new paradigm visionaries, because we have perceptions, abilities, capacities that are not embraced by our larger human family. And therefore, we have very unique angles to the challenges that we face on a daily basis. So I'm here to the best of my ability, to share a liberated perspective to these daily challenges. So we have some interesting things to talk about today. For those of you who are in the Telegram group, I love you guys. Thank you so much for having some rocking conversations and bringing really interesting pieces forward. And that's mostly what I'm going to be talking about today. So there was a conversation in our Telegram group called Multidimensional Human. If you guys were able to, if you guys are on that, here, hold on a second, let me draw it up so I can talk about it. Here it is. Okay, so this is a little bit of a complex question, but I want to talk about it because there's so many juicy layers to this issue. Okay, so this is from dear M. Raj. Actually, it's from M. Raj and Young Trick. We're having a conversation, and I've just pulled a few things out of it because I think it's really significant for us to talk about, especially in the context of trauma and your spiritual awakening. So here's the question. So this is a question related to the topic of trauma. So it says, what is your multidimensional take on the human nervous system? Is it a matter of mind shifting for faster trauma reintegration, or is it different levels of work, such as somatic work addressing the human visceral aspects and shamanic work focusing on other dimensional aspects of the being? And then in response to that question, Young Trick chimed in with something that I found very interesting, and it's really important for all of us to pay attention to, because this is how we overwhelm ourselves and blow ourselves up, and sometimes, really shoot ourselves in the foot in the awakening process, liberation process. So Young Trick goes into to talk about his biosuit. He says that his biosuit experience will let him know when my spiritual energy is coming in too hot. But I found that sometimes it takes days or weeks, or in hindsight, even years, to recognize that whatever spiritual energetic breakthrough I had was perhaps too much for my body to handle at the time. Now, I would love to hear from you guys who's all here live. Have you had something like this happen where, and this is what I call sticking your finger in the spiritual lightning socket. Have you had this happen where you went and had an experience and it was groundbreaking, life-changing, and yet it took many years to integrate it because the physical body was just not in the place that it needed to be for quick and graceful reintegration? Now, we're separating body from spirit, but the way our biosuit works, there isn't a separation, right? What is in separation is that we have this idea that the biosuit is separate from the expression of our spirit. But really, it is, if it's cleaned up, if the DNA dances clean and unhindered, it is a perfect expression of our spirit. Okay, so without distortions. So I'm going to go in to talk about that more, and I want to kind of like break down what I actually mean by that. And then also within the same topic, there's a question here about what does it mean for the nervous system to go crystalline? All right. So just to put those out there, and then I'll just dive in, weave it in like I do, as you guys know I do. All right. So there's a few things. And now remember, humanity has gone through a lot of trauma as a collective, right? We have a ancient story about a fall of consciousness in our history, right? So what happens with that is that, that's implying that some part of us stopped expressing itself through the biosuit. Some part of us stopped having a clear expression of of the DNA dance, as in, just like when we're traumatized, we lose a part of our energy. We lose either a soul fragment or we lose life force energy in the mechanism of shock. And then when you talk about the fall of consciousness, it couples with something called a great catechism. Catechism. That's church. Catastrophe. That's what a great catastrophe, which means not just humanity has trauma, but the actual Pachamama, Mother Earth, has trauma as well. So we are the same. So as the earth gets traumatized, all of the beings also are also an expression of that trauma. So when we're talking about the awakening process, that means that the awakening that is possible for humanity, as multidimensional, this is how I see it. The awakening that's possible for humanity is exactly parallel with the capacity with Pachamama, with Mother Earth. And according to some of the very wise masters that I've worked with, one of them being Barbara Hand Clow, which many of you guys follow, know, and really love her work, is that great catastrophe is a story, not just a collective trauma of humanity, but it's actually a story of the Pachamama, the Great Mother herself, becoming traumatized. And according to that timeline, according to that understanding, it's now the times after the Mayan calendar that she is no longer traumatized. She has healed. She has fully healed from the trauma, which paves the way for us humans to heal from our trauma and to wake up who we are on a fuller capacity. Okay? So there is a component, there's components here that that we're going to talk about in different layers. There's the ancestral component, there's just the biosuit dance, and then there's also the journey of the soul. Okay? So the journey of the soul I refer to as the records in the Akasha. And then we have the ancestral journey. This is everything that you've inherited from your ancestors, but then you have your actual purpose, which is the pure physical expression of your being that's in your body, right? So all these things play together. We call it purpose, right? So a lot of times, and you guys, I'm sure you've had this experience in your own journey, in your awakening journey, is that the awakening journey looks like a healing journey. It looks like healing your ancestry. It looks like healing, doing soul retrievals. It looks like doing what you need to do to restore health where there was once fragmentation and trauma, which means there are trauma dramas that we carry into this life through our Akasha on our soul's journey. And then there's trauma dramas that we've inherited from our ancestry, right? And then there's actual trauma dramas that we experienced in this life, like car accidents, bike falls, stuff like this. Getting into fights, whatever. There's all sorts of stuff like that. So as you guys know, in this process of waking up to who you are as a multidimensional human, it starts off as a spiritual awakening. It starts off as waking up and having these really profound spiritual type experiences, right? And then somewhere along the way, that you start to have these glimpses of who you are beyond the face, who you are beyond who you think you are, who you are beyond the biosuit. And you start to have these glimpses of being an infinite being, having a human experience. And this is something that cycles around, and you'll go back and forth for a little while, feeling like an infinite being here and there, having very human experiences. And then the tides will shift again, and you'll start going back into feeling very human, having spiritual experiences. And then that just keeps cycling around until eventually you get to this critical mass where your awakening journey really is not a spiritual practice at all. It's more of a perfecting the human practice. Okay. So when you're doing a lot, whether you're on the journey of being a human having a spiritual experience, or that infinite being having a human experience, there's this biosuit that we need to contend with. And it goes back and forth. It's just not one or the other. You need to be working with the nervous system and the biosuit, as well as the soul's journey the soul's journey and correcting the different inceptions that have happened within the Akasha, such as vows to vows to disempower, vows to harm the feminine, vows to demasculate. But, we have all these promises, vows, and contracts, and something that I just summarize as constructs within our Akasha that plays out through our subconscious and creates this reality. Remember, there's all these multidimensional nesting dolls that are creating our here and now. And we can access all those nesting dolls in our subconscious. But we need to understand that it's not our ego driver that's creating this life, creating this reality. It's also, it is your infinite self that's creating this reality, which means those other nesting dolls have to get addressed. So there's the layer of ancestral clearing. Ancestral clearing is essential because you've inherited, your biosuit has been programmed with beliefs and conditions and emotions and thoughts that your mother had while you were in the womb. So you came into a biosuit that was already pre-programmed. So there's decoding all those things, right? But then there's also inherited trauma, dramas, pains, but structures that's come down a much longer line. So say you come from a great example is, say you come from a culture that is devoutly Catholic and you don't buy into it, but on a subconscious level, those initiations, the ceremonial magic that was performed in the, what do they call that? With First Communion and the baptism and the ritual, the ceremonial magic that was happening every single Sunday. That's a deep level energetic programming, weaving your energy into committing yourself to the church and then their agendas and all that stuff. And then if you add in the dimensional level of, those churches being on ley lines getting activated, then you have your holidays. I mean, that's like a deep weave into a control system. And even if this life you want nothing to do with it, you've inherited the commitments, the vows, the promises of your ancestry to be woven into that landscape. So ancestral healing clearing is absolutely essential for liberating your biosuit. And so is addressing the current life trauma dramas. But then there's what you do on a daily basis. And this is the part that a lot of people don't realize. What you do on a daily basis is the big deciding factor in how you move forward. So say you put your finger in the spiritual lightning socket. Okay, you come down off the mountain, you go back to your life, it's completely destroyed, you're traumatized by that, and now you got to pick up your life again, right? Raise your hand if that's ever happened to you, right? Those of us have been around for a few decades, most certainly. So you can, that spiritual awakening or that spiritual lightning socket, you can take that event and that cracking open and continue to let that cracking open more and more and more until you are a completely new frequency, new being. You still have to deal with the current life traumas of that. You still have to have processes to work that kind of stuff out. But what some people do is they get angry or resentful or whatever, and they that cracking may have happened. Now they're totally changed, but they actually didn't change their lifestyle. They didn't change what they do on a daily basis. And this is where the big game changer is. What you do on a daily basis has everything to do with how you move forward. Okay, how you spend your time, right? So a lot of people feel like they're awake, but they spend 8 hours of the day watching YouTube or on social media, right? Or, they're really awake when they're in their meditations in the morning and maybe the meditations at night, but their life in between is a very, humdrum mundane. They're committing their life force energy and their focus into systems that are completely against their truth, right? So again, so your bandwidth that you dedicate to that, the kind of change you're going to experience is going to be minimal. Yeah, I'm getting to all these pieces. I have to weave it all together, guys, I promise. Oh, here, I'm going to pause real quick and check in with Young Trick. All right, I've been zapped by that lightning socket a couple times. LOL. One time I had a Kundalini awakening, but didn't know what it was at the time. Just remember being very debased for a while. Thanks for the picture. Okay. Yeah. Oh, by the way, happy birthday, Joanne. I just found out it was your birthday. So happy birthday, darling. Okay. So we have all these layers that are making up our experience. And how, once we start dealing with the healing stuff, we start doing what we need, supporting our biosuit in the way that it needs to be supported to integrate these big changes that we've just experienced. Spiritual lightning socket, soul retrieval, which I was just talking about with somebody, this, you have to support the body in integrating this stuff. Once it's integrated in your biosuit, this is when it's actually going to be reflected to you in this outside world, because this outside world is showing you everything that's inside of you. That's not a metaphor. That is literal. That's why we can actually create realities by digesting light codes. You digest a light code, right? It gets planted in the garden of your biosuit, assuming it's well-tilled soil and something can be planted in there. All of a sudden, you're growing this beautiful garden of abundance from that light code, and you can start sharing that. It's like and it will start changing the actual surroundings around you, how you see those surroundings, but also how you relate, how those surroundings relate to you, because everything that's happening, we are pulling to us because this is who and how we are. And this is turning the whole manifestation game on its head, because a lot of people, they go through the law of manifestation, law this, law that. It's like, no. It's all backwards. And it's all done through a masculine mindset, one that is cut off from creation, in the sense of you're starting off in a deficit. You're starting off in a need and a want, versus start in the feminine way, where you're starting off with having everything you already need to do whatever it is you want to do and whatever is important for you to do. So even our spiritual traditions show the disparage, you're not worthy until you have your initiation, right? Or after you do this and do that and do this, you've earned the badge of honor. You've earned your initiation. So now you're a warrior. So now you proved yourself. Now you can be this. Now you proved yourself here. Now you can have this badge. It's the exact opposite. You are given the initiations everything you need for you to walk the life that you've always wanted. And and if you approach in that way, that includes your healing, that includes on all levels, your healing, your acceleration, your awakening, your sovereignty. You're given it all in the beginning. What happens is that there are seeds that you need to tend to. So you're tending to yourself like a garden. So if you think about healing yourself with traumas or healing yourself with different modalities, I love Chinese medicine, right? That is all part of tending the garden. Okay. So I met a gentleman that does nervous system reset. Really interesting cat. Young guy. Well, all right, young to me guy, right? And he uses breath work, abdominal breathing, to reset the nervous system. Really, really interesting character. And his thought was that the more you sedate the nervous system, the more relaxed your body is, the more you can embody your energy, the truth of who you are, right? So there's truth to that, because if your nervous system's tweaked and your system is running on adrenaline all the time, your biosuit can't do the DNA dance necessary for your quantum to be fully expressed. But that's only one side of it. There's like once you become sedated, your nervous system becomes sedated, and you are in that parasympathetic nervous system response, there's still the expansion of the DNA dance that needs to happen, which means you have to reprogram those things that are in your head, or deprogram, more likely, those things that are in your head of who you think you are. Because remember, being a human having spiritual experience is only half the dance. The other half of the dance is recognizing who you are as an infinite being, having a human experience, and then learning how to relate to the rest of life from that lens. And this is how we accelerate as multidimensionals. And these are the ones that the dream work really works for, right? And the other levels of multidimensional work. So I know you guys are all really adept practitioners here. So is it the chicken or the egg, right? That's the question. You can be in a highly traumatized state and have a lot of your multidimensional aspects activated. Is it back? It's back. Okay, cool. Okay, so I don't know where that blipped off, so I'll have to say the sentence again without the F-bomb. So you can be a highly activated human in a traumatized body, or in a body that's running on adrenaline, or that's in a stressful state that literally cannot have its dance. The problem with that is that it'll all be in your awareness. You'll be aware of it, but you won't actually be living a life as a multidimensional. You'll still be living a life that struggles, that is living in lack, that you'll still be having these experiences that are not empowering experiences. So the advantage here is, once you are awake on those levels, you have tools available to you to work with the biosuit, so it can be in the state that it needs to be in for the rest of your quantum to just drop right in and live deep inside. Now, a lot of people think that the center of the soul is the heart, but according to the immortal masters, and I'm talking about in South America, but also in Asia, and the ones that I've been working with in Thailand, the seat is in the sacrum. That is where the true seat of the soul is. So embodying yourself to the heart space is only half the distance you need to be. It's about being deep within your sacrum, deep within your feeling senses. You're sensing your lower levels of your biosuit. This is where jaguar medicine gets activated, is when your soul is deeply rooted within the sacrum, and you've done the work necessary for that to anchor in. And once you do that, you don't need a lot of these tools that a lot of light workers need, like shielding and armor and this and that. You don't need any of those things, because once your biosuit is imbued past critical mass on that level, your field becomes pretty impenetrable. And actually, I was just working with a group. What day was that? Oh, I think it might have been yesterday. See, my days run together. I was just working with a group that really skilled and gifted people, but most of them were not anchored in their sacrum, so they needed a lot of armor in order to execute the purpose of why they were together. So when you drop in more deeply by doing the work you need to do to support the body, then you can start to actually live the truth of your multidimensional nature. Things just come to you as you need them. It's like, quite literally, I will say I want something and I'll have no idea how it's going to happen. And sometimes I'll actually get a knock on the door, knock, 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 knock. And somebody will be bringing exactly what it is that I said I wanted, right? It happens like that. It's because I'm embodied, deeply embodied. I'm a very normal human for the most, well, all right. I think I'm normal. It's just I can process a lot of energy, and I create a life in a completely different way than most other humans. And of course, it's my passion to empower you guys to make a life, in the way that you want, that's really true to you. This is how we change the world. Our value systems change, our needs change, all this stuff changes. So going into changes, in the prophecy of the masters that I've worked with, they've talked about this idea of a new human coming to this planet. Alberto writes about this, the difference between a Homo sapien and a Homo luminous, okay? And that's his way of expressing this shift of a new human. This is tying into the whole crystalline piece. And what's happening is that our frequency is at such a place where we are in completely different relationship to creation than the old paradigm human. We are Homo luminous in the sense that we are we don't have to go through that journey of being a human being having a spiritual experience in order to threshold into being an infinite being having a human experience. I said that? Okay, yeah. Human being have a spiritual experiencing, crossing the threshold of being a spiritual being having a human experience. You won't have to go through that first half of the cycle. Instead, you are born with the awareness of being an infinite being in a human experience. And with that comes your memories, okay? So this is said to be happening right now during these times, starting with the late 80s, going all the way through the early 2030s. This is the time when those new humans are coming. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be born like this, because there's encodements. Our biosuit's multidimensional. This teaching came with a whole pack, zip file of encodements for people to take in and digest and change their biosuit so they can convert into having that experience as an infinite being, having a human experience. So this is where you start getting language like crystalline, right? Now, there are some pros and cons about crystalline. Crystalline energy means that a lot of energy can pass through you very quickly, right? It's a lot more clean movement. Crystalline also can be talked about as silicone, right? Now, you guys, I don't know if you're sci-fi fans. I'm a huge sci-fi fan, right? I love all the Star Treks, all of the Stargates, I love all of it. But there was a particular series of episodes in both the old school Star Trek and the new school Star Treks, where they explored what it would look like for humanity, for humans to come in contact with a crystalline-based virus. Okay. And pretty actually across the board, those episodes were, there's nothing you can do to stop a crystalline virus because we're carbon-based. Now, Homo sapien is carbon-based. But as we get into that more infinite being, we need a system that can allow more quantum, more energy to pass through us. Now, in the old paradigm, a lot of humans are just struggling just to be in the flow, right? Because, they have a hard time just letting energy pass through them for whatever reason. It could be trauma inherited, could be trauma from this life, it could be whatever happening in their akasha, there could be, all sorts of things going on that are keeping that from happening. But that's not us, because we are awake to much larger levels of who we are. We understand that we can step out of that with hard work and direct address to those issues. And we can expand our consciousness where we can step into, or we can expand our consciousness and shed those shame programs and, the different programming from the religions about not deserving and all that stuff, and just be the flow that we are. So, a lot of us are really have most of ourselves pulled out of that paradigm. So the next piece is being the flow that you are. And then there's the piece after that is maximizing the kind of flow that is possible to go through your being. Okay. And at that threshold, that's where the crystalline issue starts coming into the conversation. Also, in that crossing of that threshold is also where the changing of the chakra system conversation starts coming into play as well. So we've had this conversation several times. I'm just going to revisit this. Okay. So matter of fact, I was in Tulum when I discovered this history about the Vedic, what we call the Vedic chakra system. That's the seven centered chakra system as taught through the Vedic teachings. When I was in Tulum the first time, 5 years ago, feels like a lifetime ago, I was doing some work with some starseeds, and Hyperboreans started to present. And as they were presenting, they were downloading a history, the history of who they are in relationship to the people in the room, in the relationship to Mesoamerica, and in relationship to me. And we were, and they were pretty much imparting that the Vedic, the seven center chakra system, as known through the Vedic teachings, was a gift from the Hyperboreans to humanity to assist them in re-embodying their biosuits, because directly after the mass catastrophic event, the mass trauma, humanity and the earth was so extremely traumatized, humans were not able to hold the morphic field of their biosuit. So they gifted them this chakra system to assist humanity in their deeper embodiment into this realm. Okay. Now, for those of you that have gone deep down the rabbit hole in the multidimensional journey, also realize most of the, okay, maybe most isn't exactly accurate. Many of the control systems, artificial control systems that plague humanity are uniquely designed just for that 7 chakra model. Okay. So what many star seeds that are in this place of they're already in flow, but now they're going into maximizing the kind of quantum that can flow through them, they discover this process that they call chakra removal. And this is a process that you put yourself through to actually remove those layers, etheric and right down into the endocrine system of the chakra system, the Vedic chakra system specifically. Now, that was not the only energetic system that was gifted to humanity. Amarumuru, the founder of the Incan Empire, which is they call the Serpent King, seeded the Inca people in Lake Titicaca, and he gifted them a 3-part chakra system. And that, right, a 3-part chakra system, and that correlates also with the Taoist teachings and different Eastern teachings that only talk about 3 main systems: the upper dantian, middle dantian, lower dantian. Okay, so there were multiple systems that were gifted to humanity, but the powers that be decided that the 7 chakra model, as taught through the Vedic, was more desirable for whatever reason, to the betterment of humanity or not. You guys decide on that one. So going back to maximizing the kind of quantum. So in order to maximize the level of quantum that can be in flow through your body, that 7 chakra model has a lot of problems with it. One of it being the activation of the Kundalini. As dear young trick named Jim has pointed out, that can have a very adverse effect. Some people become debilitated. Some people become handicapped. Some people have strokes. I mean, it can have a really adverse effect on the biosuit because of the subconscious mechanisms and the different nesting dolls of creation that's creating your reality. So it can be problematic for some. Some have found it to be problematic. Others have not found it to be problematic, in which case, hey, wonderful. I don't care either way. I just acknowledge it because I know that it's so. I see that it's a true thing. So in the effort to maximize the level of quantum that can flow through human spirit and their biosuit, there's upgrades that are happening within the body. And this is where you start getting ideas about going crystalline, going diamond. Now, that they're talking about the spirit body and the etheric body in those languagings, but it also can be applied to things like the endocrine system, the nervous system, and other more maybe physical, what one would call physical aspects of the biosuit. And the interesting thing about that is that it's not a something that guarantees you from being hijacked, because you can still program a crystal to whatever you want. It can be with intentions that are benevolent and uplifting and helpful for humanity, and it could be power over dynamics. A crystal is benign. It doesn't care usually, right? You can take a crystal and program it with whatever you want, right? Assuming that you have that relationship and capability. So just because you're switching from carbon-based into a crystalline-based does not mean the same similar hang-ups about claiming your sovereignty are at play. I would say it's even more at play when you start going crystalline, because now your energy, your life force energy, is even more abundant, even more juicy, even more attractive to those that live off the luge, okay? So I wouldn't say that you have much advantage yet of being in a more crystalline state. If anything, you have to be a lot more vigilant about how you spend your time, how you spend your bandwidth, what you focus on every day. So if anything, the bar of your quality of humanness gets raised even higher, in my perspective, if you're going through that kind of shift, going from carbon to crystalline. Okay. One of the things, though, that is advantage from going to making that shift is that a lot of the carbon-based infiltration won't have, as you'll be immune to it, right? You'll be more immune to it than the average human, and that's stuff like. Well, I won't get into that because that's going to be a whole new rabbit hole. I want to get to these comments and then keep rolling on in this direction. All right. Yep. Thank you. Thank you. It's back. Woohoo. All right. Miroslav says, can you assist someone to deal with those issues and problems you just mentioned? Oh, shoot. I should have read this right when you posted it. I think that might have jumped in when we were talking about upgrading consciousness and the trauma dramas inherited from ancestors. Please let me know if that is the place where you're picking it up, and I'll watch closely for your response. All right, dear Sister Holly says, right after 9/11, I was part of the survivor group. A CAT scan of my lungs showed crystalline structures that the doctors would only describe but not understand what they were doing there. Okay. Now that's interesting. So, Holly, do you feel like you have lung or breathing issues? Like this, like there's something that hinders, or is this nothing at all? Okay, so crystalline we're talking about an etheric structure, a structure that can channel energy, that can allow energy to pass through it. And it also can hold vast amounts of information. So misplaced crystalline structures could be, I was going to say misplaced crystalline structures could be a detriment to one's health. But the fact that they are actual crystalline means that you can imbue them with wisdom, information, and functionality to maybe, mimic the where they are in the body. With the process that needs to happen with where they are in the body. There's that kind of thing. That would take a lot of focus, meditation, and dedication, though, because there's this highly charged thought form and other emotional things in the subconscious that you have to deal with. So everything is about relationship. If something is crystalline and it's not in right relationship with the rest of your body, it's not helping you. If it's not in right relationship with the core truth of who you are, it's not helping you. So to think that just because something is of a particular structure or a particular way, if it's not in right relationship and right in harmony with your particular expression, then it's not going to be any good. Now, there's times when we get equipped with things before we need them. Those kinds of things happen, but that's more of preparedness, and usually they stay in like a dormant state until something in your life body gets activated, and then they come online. Now, I know I had that with diamond encodements. I had these. I was in meditation. I watched these diamond encodements drop in. This is related to cosmic dragon frequencies. I had these diamond encodements drop in, and I was just like, oh, what's this about? But they weren't ready to get activated. I needed to cross the threshold of a few things before I can actually have them come online and get fully activated. So I did. I did the different kind of work I needed to do. I needed to sedate my nervous system. I needed to reset some things on a brainwave level. There's all sorts of things I needed to do to prepare my biosuit for those codes to get activated. So it takes a lot of compassion with these things. A lot of times we're on a sprint and we just want to keep running, but we need to recognize that this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. We have to pace ourselves. Okay, we have to pace ourselves. If you are downloading encodements and integrating as fast as you possibly can, that means you need to have a lifestyle of having regular body work to assist your biosuit in processing all that. Okay, and like I said, my favorite, and I find very effective, is Chinese medicine. because it used the acupuncture and the herbs together, and that really helps smooth the whole process over. Okay, so you don't know when you got them. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Polly, can I look at that real quick? Do you mind if I just looked at that? I'm interested. I'm curious to see if I can get to an origin point with them. Because it could be, debris from the buildings, right? In which case they shouldn't be crystal. They would be they. Well, no, that they could be crystal if it was like asbestos or something like this. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I'm getting it. That's debris. It's debris. That's just outside looking in without digging too deeply, which you can still work with by focusing your efforts on sedating the nervous system and bringing yourself into a deep parasympathetic nervous system response for extended periods of time. You can set the stage for your body to start expelling that stuff or dissolving that stuff if it's possible. A lot of times on our healing journeys, the reason why we start developing disease or developing things that are chronic is because our biosuit needs a lot more support than we are giving it. And for a lot of people, it's not realistic even to be in a deep parasympathetic nervous system state for many hours at a time. So for some people, it's like, I don't have time in my life for that. I can't sit around doing nothing. So that's a factor here, is how much time, rest and digest time, are we giving our biosuits when we go into, and this is partially why I feel like water fasting is so impactful for deep healing states, because when you're water fasting, you can't do anything but you start to go into a very deep altered state, and you stay in that deep altered state for the duration of the fast. Okay. And I'm talking about people who are water fasting for months at a time. They've had amazing results, curing incurable diseases by this sort of process. You're not in an everyday world. You are in a sanctuary where everything is set up to be optimal for the nervous system, for you to be in that rest and digest state. And then and plus there's all the work that I've done with the breatharians in Thailand. No, I didn't go in there with the intention of becoming a breatharian. I went in there with the intention of learning how to reprogram my cells so I can nourish myself differently and have a different relationship to outer nourishment, which is exactly what I got. But a part of that process is not eating for 11 days, right? So you're in dark room where it's dark 24/7. And then you're changing the brain waves. You're changing the biochemistry within your endocrine system. I'm stepping outside of normal human reality and going into dream time 24/7. And then there's no outer substances that are taxing my body in any way. So you're living in an altered dimensional state, reprogramming your cells in that state from a expanded aspect of who you are. So those sorts of processes is oftentimes the depths that we need to go to heal ourselves from these deep chronic things that are considered incurable. We need to go to an extreme, like beyond what we think a normal, that we would be willing to do. Usually the Western mind anyway. Now, when you get into indigenous practices, you do whatever it is you have to do, period. It's not an option. This is the depths of which you go. Okay, so the recommendation is to go live in solitude for 3 years in the jungle. This is how you're gonna cure your ailment, right? And if you're gonna do it the way that the way that it's been prescribed, you're gonna do that, and you'll come back and as a completely different human, different person. You've made the frequency shift, so your biosuit and your spirit and the quantum and the flow going through you is at a completely different frequency than it was before, and therefore your body doesn't have the expression of that illness. yeah, these extremes are necessary for those pieces sometimes. I also was told about a process, and I didn't do this process, and I don't know if the person that was informing me about it has done it. I don't think they have, because we've talked here and there. There's this process of a darkroom experience, but you do it for 3 months. You do it 3 months, and the only thing that you're drinking is, I think it's milk. But it's not a processed milk. It's raw calf milk that is not any older. Or it's a calf. So after the cow gives birth, there's different kinds of milk that comes out as the calf ages. So you're in dark room for the whole time, and you're eating calf's milk that is intended for the calf within its first 3 months of life. And then after that, you don't use that cow's milk anymore, and it's raw. And you do that process, and that process will actually reverse all the aging your body has endured for 20, even 30 years. You can actually reverse the aging process by decades by doing this kind of process. And it turns out this is a known process within the East. Now, extreme, yes, right? So, but a lot of these things that we consider are as impossible, they're impossible because of the level of extreme one needs to go in order to experience it. I once met a man that did a 6-month dry fast. Now, he wasn't doing it as a breatharian. He was doing it as a fast. And he was doing that because he was eradicating himself of parasites, deeply embedded parasites that normally one doesn't ever get to address. And that was, his big thing, because he was really obsessed with being completely sovereign on a multidimensional level, and he felt like his body had these parasites, and no parasite cleanse would take care of it. And then he downloaded or uploaded from his spirit, however you want to look at that this is what he needed to do to eradicate himself of these parasites, and that's what he did. Can you imagine doing a dry fast for 6 months? He looked terrible. Actually, he's on YouTube. I can't remember his name to refer you to him, but maybe you can talk about 6-month dry fasting and parasites or something like this. The video might come up. So, these pieces are, the human body is absolutely amazing in what it can do. There are no limits. What's important is that you're listening to it and you're in right relationship with these things. So when you're evolving your consciousness, your biosuit, addressing the biosuit is absolutely essential. The nervous system is absolutely essential. Okay. Polly says colostrum. No, the colostrum is that's in the first couple hours or maybe first couple days. This was the first 3 months of calf's milk. I don't know the full science, of what was behind that tradition, but that was what he told me the process was. This was from a dear friend that I met in Thailand that spent a lot of time in India, like a lot of time in India. So, and he was also on the pursuit of looking for the fountain of youth, so to speak. He was a Westerner that has been in the East for a long time, and he just really wanted to reverse all the damage he did in his life, oxidative damage that he's done in his life, and he wanted to go back, dial the biological clock, dial it back by 20 years, and that was the next level process that he was researching. All right. Oh, okay. Miroslav's here. All right. I wanted to ask you what you can be causing muscle spasms, kind of struggling, surrendering to flow of life where I feel safe while growing, changing, and moving in my life. Yeah. Okay. So this is a process. This process is best dictated by your inner knowing. But I'm going to give you a piece that might help you. Okay. Western culture puts a very high value on safety. And the reason why is because that is how they were able to colonize the indigenous mind. Is if you don't do it's not safe if you don't do what you're told. Okay, it's not safe for you spiritually. It's not safe emotionally, mentally, physically, right? I mean, they pretty much terrorized and traumatized the indigenous of this globe to acquiesce to the demands of colonization. So there is a deeply embedded program that gives us this need for safety. Okay. And I'm not saying it's not a real need. It's not a real feeling. It's absolutely a real feeling, right? If you don't feel safe, you don't feel safe. Your nervous system's kicking off, adrenaline, all kinds of stuff is going on, right? Okay. So on that level, you can adapt regular, I'm talking about the nervous system responding to not feeling safe level. You can adapt regular pranayama practices, breathing exercises, belly breathing exercises that stimulate the vagal nerve. Another thing you can do to counteract the physical impact is work your belly button. Like you get your hands in the belly button and you start stretching it out in all these different directions until eventually it's loose and pliable and you can press back far enough to touch, massage, so to speak, the vagal nerve that's right below the diaphragm. The vagal nerve is the longest nerve in the human body. It goes all the way from the brainstem down to the top of the womb space or bottom of the diaphragm if you're a man. Okay, so that's the nervous system response to safety. But now I want to give you a spiritual understanding about safety. Safety is a lie. There's no such thing as safety. Okay? It is a control system. When we are making decisions to keep ourselves safe, we are making decisions to grab onto something, have a sense of control, grab onto something else outside of us so we have a sense of control, right? It is a mechanism of the ego driver. So the ego driver is a petty tyrant that believes that it's the one in charge, but it's not. It's your spirit that's in charge. It's the infinite aspect of your nature that is creating this reality. The ego driver is the toddler in the passenger seat, okay? And we've been trained energetically, we've been trained psychologically, we've been trained generation after generation to fully believe that we are who we think we are. We give all this power over to the ego driver. We can actually become frozen in fear by our ego driver, right? But this is where you start addressing the physiological response to fear, the physiological response to not feeling safe. Address that so your body goes into that deep parasympathetic rest and digest response. And you can retrain yourself. You can retrain your biosuit to have a different response to fear, a different response to not feeling safe. Okay, so you're reprogramming your biosuit through conditioning to step out of the need to have safety in order to feel secure within oneself. Okay, so there's that piece. And then the other piece is safety is an illusion. There's everything about your life can change in a split second. And many of you guys know this. You know, you can fall, you can keel over of an aneurysm in a moment. You can have a car accident that changes everything. You can have, some sort of major event that changes everything in a split second. In this way, safety is an illusion. We invest all this focus, we invest all this life force energy into creating safety, but it's not real. It's the illusion of safety. Okay? So when we spend large amounts of our bandwidth cultivating and creating safety, we are spending large amounts of our bandwidth feeding a lie, feeding an illusion. Okay. Those are the two pieces I can give you. As far as particular modalities of body work or modalities of working with the biosuit, like I said, I love Chinese medicine. Also, cranial sacral work is very, very good. They are not all created equal. There's many different kinds of cranial sacral work. I would, I really love the biodynamic craniosacral work, not the up ledger practice, but biodynamic craniosacral work, because that requires the practitioner to practice profound listening and holding a profound space of stillness. And with that, they can actually unwind the nervous system, unwind trauma. Now, the up ledger practice is good too, but I find that it goes much deeper. The biodynamic kind goes much, much deeper into unraveling deep interdimensional aspects of the nervous system. All right, I'm going to take a comment and then I'm going to go because it's time's up already. It's amazing how it's gone by. All right, Joanne says the propaganda to be safe is rampant these days. The reason for all the insurance programs and school rules, removing the playground equipment, etc. Yeah, right? Oh my gosh, yeah. All right, so I want to chime in on that and just use the example of horses, okay? So I was an equestrian when I was younger, and we had all different, it was a barn that had all different types of working horses, let's say it like that. Some were really high level dressage, hunter jumpers, really high level show horses, and others were brood mares and, horses that have gone to pasture, so to speak, and, no one really cared much about them. So the horses that were highly maintained, like those show horses, right? If you put them in the stall that had the slightest little nail, they were going to find it and cut themselves, right? But these other horses, these brood mares and the ones put to pasture, you can put them in a stall with 100 nails and they'd be fine. Nothing would happen, right? It's because, they didn't cultivate the expectation that no matter where I go, I don't need to pay close attention because I'm going to be fine, right? This is what Western culture is. We have this high level of expectation that things should be a certain way to keep us safe. And a great way to bust that paradigm is go to a third world country sometime, okay? Completely different rules. I mean, the rules of traffic don't even really apply. Here in Mexico, it's a really great example. Nobody has addresses here. There's no addresses. If you want to get somewhere, you have to tell someone a roundabout where it is. If you're lucky, you might know the name that the building has, but there's no 4619 Avenida Cabá. No. It's on Cabá. It's this building. It's in this neighborhood. And it's up to you to figure it out. It's completely up to you. It's your responsibility to figure out. It's not the person's fault for not giving you wrong directions. It's not the person's fault for not giving you and being able to give you an exact address. No. You want to get somewhere. It's up to you to figure out how to get there. Same thing with like when you go to train stations and stuff. We have all these, yellow lines and bells and whistles. It tells everybody a train's coming. But you go to a third world country where there's a train. I mean, you're lucky that there's nothing. I mean, you can hear the train coming. That's all you got, and there'll be people standing on the tracks and the train is coming. And it's like, Darwin, right? If you don't have the sense, if you don't have the horse sense, the common sense to get out of the way, then, there you go. It's no one's fault but your own. That's a very different way of thinking about things than a lot of folks in the West. The West has a completely different level. You don't assume that the water is safe to drink. You don't assume anything about anything when you get into a third world country. I mean, where I'm at is really, really nice. It's beautiful, and I would not call this third world, though maybe some Americans might, some Canadians might. But there are parts that are very, very third world, right? And I mean, you just got to figure it out. It's your problem. You want to do something? It's your problem to figure it out. No one's going to be there to save you. But there is this really deep human connection that's here. So people have compassion. People are full of kindness, right? So because they know what it's like to not be able to get to where you're going. They know what it's like to feel like you're missing something that's really important to you. So it's out of the compassion and kindness of their heart, they might help you. You see? So it's very different than our assumptions that we have in the West. All right. Well, thank you guys for hanging out. I hope that I was able to address these pieces appropriately. Get a young trick, let me know. Emraj, let me know. And for those of you who want to join these kinds of conversations, there's two places that they happen. There's the Telegram group called Multidimensional Human, and there's a Facebook group called Rise of the Multidimensional Human. Now, this is a community of people, so the conversations are the organic conversations that happen in the community. Okay. And then, of course, with these videos, we can have conversations in the comments in the chats below. Thank you, Young Trick. Thank you for that. Awesome. Woohoo! I hit the mark. Wonderful. And also, please, that reminds me, you guys, like, subscribe, comment in this video in the comments below, and that helps the algorithm, helps other people find us. I really appreciate you guys being here. Mwah. Lots of love to you all. We'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.